All right, tonight, major progress on three big fronts, especially with the president and North Korea and the negotiations. The June 12th summit is back. Now, only hours ago, a top lieutenant from North Korea named Kim Yong-chol hand-delivered a personal note to Kim Jong-un, to President Trump. And according to the Wall Street Journal, this note was described as fairly basic, but reportedly expressed Kim Jong-un's interest in holding the nuclear summit. Now, earlier today, here is how the president reacted. Let's take a look.
The meeting on June 12th in Singapore went very well. It's really a get-to-know-you kind of a situation. Mike has spent 2 days doing this. We've gotten to know their people very well, and we will. You people are going to have to travel because you'll be in Singapore on June 12th. And I think it'll be a process. It's not, I never said it goes in one meeting. I think it's going to be a process. But the relationships are building, and that's a very positive thing. We're talking about years of hostility, years of problems, years of really hatred between so many different nations. But I think you're going to have a very positive result in the end, not from one meeting. We're not going to we're not going to go in and sign something on June 12th. We never were. We're going to start a process. And I told them today, take your time. You can go fast, we can go slowly. But I think they'd like to see something happen, and if we can work that out, that'd be good.
Do you believe Kim is committed to denuclearization?
Yeah, I do think so. He'd like to see it happen. He wants to be careful. He wants to be, he's not going to run and do things.
All right, that's the president. Great news, by the way, for the entire world. And look at what we've won so far. Now, the president's scheduled to hold a series of weekend briefings at Camp David about this upcoming summit, where the United States plans to negotiate the complete, the unilateral denuclearization of North Korea and the Korean Peninsula. Amazing news for the world. There's promise, there's hope. And by the way, your media said would never happen. We're going to have a lot more on this later in the show tonight. But first, huge, massive news on the economic front. The economy in the United States is now booming officially. We are breaking records month after month. In May, a robust 223,000 jobs were added. The unemployment rate in the United States is now at an 18-year low. Jobless claims dropping to 3.8%. In fact, we've only seen a number that low since 1969. The Mets won the World Series. And get this, African-American unemployment also at an all-time low for the first time, 5.9%. Consumer confidence at a 17-year high. Look at that headline from the New York Times. This had to kill them. We ran out of words to describe how good the job numbers are. Now, the president's economic agenda is clearly succeeding. And despite what the Destroy Trump media tells you night after night after night, this country is in a so much better place, more prosperous place with President Trump at the helm. Numbers do not lie. Let's take a trip down memory lane and contrast with President Obama's horrific economic track record. It saw virtually no growth, record high distribution of food stamps. 13 million more Americans were on food stamps. 8 million more Americans were in poverty. We had the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, the worst home ownership rate in 51 years, the worst recovery since the 40s, and he doubled the national debt. Yeah, that was Barack Obama's record. We'll get back to all this major news on the economic front later in the show. But now we got to turn to some other breaking news tonight, and this is huge, from John Solomon. His brand new bombshell report, the FBI's efforts to monitor the Trump campaign actually originated months before the FBI authorized the counterintelligence investigation into so-called Russian election interference. This after, quote, foreign figures contacted Trump campaign advisors and provided the FBI with hearsay allegations of Trump-Russia collusion. Now, according to John Solomon, these foreign figures, including some of the trusted intelligence sources and even some Hillary Clinton supporters. In other words, what this means is members of the deep state, that upper echelon that we talk about, Clinton sycophants, they were literally flooding the FBI with lies, unverified, uncorroborated, anti-Trump material. And there's more. Remember the lovebird, Strzok and Page? John Solomon tonight has uncovered a series of new texts from these two anti-Trump FBI officials that show the Obama administration was likely involved in steering this investigation against the Trump campaign, including one text that took place as the FBI was opening their investigation into so-called Russian meddling, where Lisa Page writes, quote, "We're not going to withstand the pressure soon." And then Page and Strzok also expressing fears that Obama would, quote, hijack their investigation or leak details to the press. And in another text from Peter Strzok, he indicated that the Obama administration was very much involved in the FBI investigation, writing, quote, "The White House," meaning the Obama White House, "is running this." So what did Obama know? When did he know it? What did his inner circle know? When did they know it? It's now time to put the former president and his entire team under oath. Now, Sarah Carter, also tonight, another new report and bombshell detailing the possible connection between an international spying alliance called the Five Eyes. You can't put this in a novel. And the rampant surveillance of the Trump campaign. It's even bigger than we thought. After all, as Solomon and Carter both reported, the investigation into Trump-Russia collusion, remember, it originated abroad in London. Now, the United Kingdom is a key member of this Five Eyes alliance. And despite all of this, you got the lunatic, former communist, former CIA director under Obama, John Brennan, now calling President Trump paranoid for expressing concerns over deep state spying. We already know it's true. How could it be paranoid? Sounds like he's very defensive. Take a look.
I think Mr. Trump has demonstrated a paranoia and insecurity, as well as a real concern about the investigation that is underway. Certainly his tweets do not seem like they're coming from a person of innocence and confidence. Mr. Trump is going to promote his narrative. He certainly is going to continue to try to discredit the FBI and the CIA and others. But I think, make no mistake about it, the American justice system, I think, is going to prevail in this endeavor to get to the bottom of who might have been collaborating and working with foreign actors to try to undermine the integrity of the election.
All right, remember, this is the same John Brennan who went on national TV a few months ago and told the world that Donald Trump should be very, very worried. Sounds like a deep state threat. Take a listen.
I think he's afraid of the president of Russia.
Why?
Well, I think one can speculate as to why. That the Russians may have something on him personally that they could always roll out and make his life more difficult. Clearly, I think it's important for us to be able to improve relations with Russia. But the fact that he has had this fawning attitude toward Mr. Putin has not said anything negative about him. I think continues to say to me that he does have something to fear.
All right, putting John Brennan's blind contempt and hatred for President Trump aside, we have even more revelations to bring you showing that the deep state is starting to crack. According to a new report, the Wall Street Journal's Kim Strassel, there are now serious issues with the FBI's, quote, Papadopoulos, who nobody ever heard of, and that narrative after the alleged informant in the case publicly contradicted the FBI's own claims that the one-time low-level Trump advisor discussed the hacked Democratic emails. And remember, the now infamous 2016 Trump Tower meeting between Donald Trump Jr., a Russian lawyer, a Russian-American lobbyist, and a few others? Oh, we have new information recently unearthed, a transcript from a 2017 Senate hearing that the Russian-American lobbyist admitted to personally knowing Hillary Clinton and some of the people who worked in her campaign. So what was someone who knew Hillary Clinton doing in that meeting? Is the media going to report on that? It's unbelievable. Gets more insane every day. We'll have more on this also later in the show. Also tonight, let's turn to the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. You know, the guy that said Comey should be fired, the guy that signed the last FISA warrant based on the phony dossier that Clinton bought and paid for. She used a foreign agent to put together, funneling money through a law firm, then to GPS, then to the foreign agent, Russian lies, Russian government lies to manipulate you, the American people. Well, last night we showed you how Rosenstein's clear conflicts of interest surrounding this ongoing Russia probe, specifically, his key role in firing Comey. He's witness A in that whole investigation, and he's the one that appointed Mueller. Now, finally, people in D.C. are getting what we have been telling you. There are growing calls tonight for Rod Rosenstein to recuse himself. That includes Senator Lindsey Graham. Welcome aboard, Senator. He is asking three very important questions. Quote, do you consider yourself a potential witness in the Mueller investigation regarding the firing of Director Comey by President Trump? If not, why not? He recommended it. Yeah, he's a witness. And if so, by the way, you should recuse yourself from further interactions with oversight of the Mueller investigation. Thankfully, finally, someone saying what we have been saying and calling for over and over for months. The Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, it's time for you to answer those questions. We know the answers, and then recuse yourself and get out of the way, because you are the most conflicted person in all of this, not the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. And by the way, great news for me tonight. Pay close attention. Remember when Senator Chuck Schumer said that you better not mess with the intel community because they're going to get you 6 ways to Sunday? This is great news for me. Best-selling author Jerome Corsi. He's the author of this book. It's out now in bookstores, on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. It's called Killing the Deep State. You might remember him. He was back. Remember the group against John Kerry, Vietnam Vets for Truth? He was one of them. He's saying that yours truly, that I, Sean Hannity, am the next target of the deep state. Wow, isn't it so great to know that these corrupt officials with their backs against the wall, that are desperate people do desperate things, the people that have the most powerful tools of intelligence, they're now going after me. Okay, really? So sadly, after all we have learned, you know, now we have Jerome Corsi's prediction. It doesn't surprise me. Isn't that sad? Are we the United States of America, or are we going to be the former Soviet Union, or are we going to be Venezuela? I promise you this one thing. I'm never stopping, ever.